talking about success is just terrible. It is, nobody wants to hear about your success. We can sit here in St. Louis, pat ourselves on the back, do all this stuff. But think of the most boring guy at the cocktail party, right? Oh, this is great. How's it going, Bill? Oh, it's going fantastic. You don't want to hear it's going fantastic. You want to hear about the time when he didn't notice that his blind date had an Adam's apple. You know? That's what you want. You want failure. It makes it interesting. And I'm an engineer. I am somebody who spends his life basically looking at problems. If you're an engineer, you don't concentrate on the stuff that works. It's working. You ignore the stuff that works. You spend your time focused on the stuff that doesn't work. And let me tell you, folks, we got a few things that aren't working here. Have you tried to get a flight out of this town? We're working on it, yeah. So I've got some pretty aggressive goals for the city. And I have some what I call proxy metrics. And the two that I'll share with you are both very concerning to me. One is that I can't fly anywhere, right? Unless I fly myself. I can't go nonstop to most of the places that I need to go. And that's a factor with businesses. That's a factor where companies locate, okay? And you know, we're not infrastructure constrained. I mean, we got an extra runway out there. And even before we had that runway, we used to have direct flights. Before we had that other runway, I used to be able to fly direct to London. You know, when I was studying in London, I would go back and forth. We don't have that anymore. And, you know, I think the real reason we don't is that there's simply just not enough demand. You know, the airlines are going to be profit maximizing. They're going to make decisions based on, you know, demand. If there's enough demand, they'll come here. So one of the proxies I look at for the city's success is how many nonstop flights can we put together out of Lambert. The second thing that really bothers me about St. Louis is every time I hear somebody, and I'm guilty of this myself, so I guess I should not, you know, cast too many stones, but every time I hear somebody talk about the city, one of the things they always talk about is the low cost of living. Oh, it's so cheap to live in St. Louis. You can get a house for, you know, like $50,000, or you can go to North St. Louis, they'll give you a house, right? That's not how you sell something. You know, the guy who sold me this shirt did not go, hey, Jim, I've got the cheapest shirt. No. That's not the way to sell our town, folks. But it's how we do it. You've all heard it. You've all heard this apology for something. And hidden in there is the apology. When I say it's cheap to live in St. Louis, the person listening to me hears, why is it so cheap, right? And there's a quality of life issue that I think is a profound hindrance to our further growth. And so I'm going to listen very carefully over the next 10 years, and when the apology drops off, when it's like, house costs how much? Jeez. Like, hey, you've done that, right? The house in Menlo Park. You know how much a house in Menlo Park costs? You don't want to know how much a house in Menlo Park costs. But one of these days, we are going to stop apologizing for having cheap land. And I'm going to look for that as a metric of success. So I don't want to leave you on this sort of gloomy note. I want to now talk about a couple of projects that I think are potentially transformative. And I say potentially because these are all experiments. These are all things that, frankly, we don't know if they're going to work yet. But they're a big, big deal. The first, and I know I get in trouble for saying this, reunification. It's not going to do anything except change the statistics in the eyes of the country. Okay, so when my wife is from Sweden, all right? We met when she was in Japan, and the first thing she did when she found out I was from St. Louis was she Googled our city, right? Now, what happens when a Swedish girl Googles St. Louis, Missouri, is she finds out that we have the second highest murder rate in the nation.
We're lucky to get a second
I was lucky to get a second date. I was lucky she was farther enough. So we had the second date in Tokyo. But then I convinced her to come here, and I was like, look, it's not that bad, right? And the reason it's not that bad is actually because we're the 6th most segregated city in the country, which is not something to be proud of, but it was what I trumped out to get my wife here. Because I benefit from segregation. I live on the south side of Delmar, flat out. My neighborhood's great, right? That's their problem. We've walled off. We've done such a good job with segregation that we should be proud of it, because we've sort of walled off the problem, except that that's not sustainable. It's actually pretty terrible. And we're number 6. Top 10 city, we're number 6 in segregation. But I think there are things we can do to address these issues. And I want to talk about some bold initiatives, some things that might not work, okay? But at least if we reunify, we eliminate the statistical hurdle that we face when other people's evaluate us. I don't know about the politics. I don't know how we're going to work out. I don't know how we're going to get rid of all those aldermen. I don't know if we're going to, change the bus lines or do the Metrolink. But I just think that just from the outside, the rest of the world is not going to listen to the rest of the explanation. They're not going to say, oh, well, you really need to consider the city and county as one. They don't do that. So if you want to look good to foreigners, reunification is a quick way to do that. But I don't want to get political here, at least not yet. Another thing that I think is super interesting, and I wish I knew more about it, is what Paul McKelvey is doing in the North City. Okay, and I know that's controversial. Okay, he's buying up houses. Guess what? North City there's a lot of stuff to buy, right? We looked when we were building a Third Degree glass factory. You guys have been to Third Degree, right? Okay. So Third Degree, we just wanted cheap real estate. Okay, we just wanted, because it's glass blowing. It could be done anywhere. It was industrial. It wasn't supposed to be a wedding venue. We had no idea it was going to, we had no idea you guys were going to come out and get married and have receptions and all that. And I'm really glad you do. But the fact is, when Doug and I started that thing, we were just looking for bricks. We were looking for cheap bricks, and I went all over North St. Louis, and it's all cheap bricks up there. You can get a building, literally, you can get a building for free from LRA, at least you could at the time. What Paul's doing with his own money, the guy's got balls. He's taking his own money, he's buying up land, he's trying to do something spectacular. I think it might work. It might work. If that works, it's going to be transformative because he gets a chance to reboot, right? So there's this weird phenomenon in the world, which is if you want the best cell coverage, go to a third world nation. It's true, because we're here with landlines. We all have, phones that work otherwise. Well, guess what? In countries that never had cell service to begin with, or that never had normal telephones to begin with, they skipped that entire generation. And they got to say, well, we need telephones, so we'll just put up these towers, and we'll just put them up at regular intervals, and we'll design a system that works so that you get coverage everywhere. There are no dead spots in Botswana, right? Surprise. We have the same opportunity because we've been so terrible, because North St. Louis is such a joke, because it looks like somebody dropped a neutron bomb there and nobody went to sweep up the rubble. Paul's coming in and doing something about it. It takes some serious stones, but I think it might work. I'm really looking forward to that.